Benjamin Sesko, right? Man in demand. What's the latest development on him?
Yeah, this one looks like it is developing. Something's going to have to come to a head sooner rather than later with this one, you would think. Manchester United now expected to make a formal offer to RB Leipzig for their striker, Benjamin Sesko. They have been in talks, as we have been reporting on Sky Sports News, over what they would be prepared to pay for Benjamin Sesko. Remember, Newcastle United, they're in ongoing talks with RB Leipzig over the structure of their deal because they've already made an offer. They were the ones who made the first move. That deal was worth around £69.8 million all in, including performance-related add-ons. It should be said from the player's perspective, he hasn't made a decision yet. He's open to both projects, but one source, and I should reiterate this, only one source has told Sky Sports News that he's leaning towards Manchester United. That is if they can agree a deal, because it will all be a moot point if there's no agreement with either club, or if there's only agreement with one club, then RB Leipzig will clearly deal with that club. United's pursuit of Sesko, though, it could have ramifications, not least on one of their current strikers who, during the US tour, started a couple of games, was on the bench the other night, Rasmus Hojlund.
And after that game against Bournemouth, he spoke to the media. He went out of his way to speak to the media in the mix zone, Rasmus Hojlund, after scoring against Bournemouth. And he said he wants to stay and fight for his place. Ruben Amorim, speaking ahead of that match, said he's really happy with Rasmus Hojlund, but he doesn't know what's going to happen in this transfer window. We understand, though, that Manchester United are willing to listen to suitable offers for Rasmus Hojlund in this transfer window. We know that Manchester United are prioritising sales in this transfer window. They can sign Benjamin Sesko without making sales, but then they'd need to make sales after bringing him into the football club. So for Rasmus Hojlund, let's bear in mind he's had 2 difficult years at United. United aren't in Europe next season. There are going to be very limited options. If they sign another number 9, 2 number 9s, there's not going to be a lot of football there, especially when you consider the likes of Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo can play up front as well. If United do sign Sesko, it does feel like Rasmus Hojlund's days are potentially numbered at the football club, which will be a disappointment for him because he signed for £72 million. It'll be a disappointment for the club as well because they're likely to make a loss on him. He signed a 5-year contract after that £72 million deal was signed with Atlanta. It means his book value is currently around £43 million. It's been reported elsewhere United would look for at least £30 million to sign him. So it looks like if they're to let him go, it would come at a loss. One
thing I would say quickly, Mike, on Rasmus Hojlund is, in defence of him, in one way, when he joined the club, he was slightly injured. He didn't have a pre-season in his first season when he joined. I think his debut was against Arsenal. He came off the bench at the Emirates and he looked pretty dangerous. His second season, he was actually looking really, really sharp in pre-season until he picked up quite a bad hamstring injury, which meant he missed the rest of pre-season and again was playing catch-up at the start of last season and then rejoined later on. This time, when there's all this talk about Rasmus Hojlund potentially going and Manchester United potentially considering suitable offers, he's had a good pre-season and he's looked pretty sharp. And even Ruben Amorim has said he's starting to learn what I want from him and he's been really, really good in these games.
Struggled at the end of last season, though, didn't he? Really struggled. Quick line that you said, that if they could bring in someone like Sesko, let's say Sesko, but they don't have to sell beforehand. But if they do that, aren't they just alerting any other club that they can get Man United players on the cheap?
I think that Manchester United are aware that the clubs are aware of this situation already because it's clear, despite the fact Ruben Amorim said that these players, and there's 4 of them right now who aren't training with the first team, aren't in the US with the squad, that they are surplus to requirements and the club and the players actively looking to move away. So yes, it does somehow make their situation from a negotiating point of view more difficult, but if it means they can get in Benjamin Sesko for the start of the season, it means they take a slight hit on the fee they're going to get for the likes of Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony Terrell Malacia. Those are 4 players we know are definitely looking for moves away. Rasmus Hojlund potentially one as well. I do understand where you're coming from, but for United, it makes more sense to try and bring in this player now so he can have a little bit of a pre-season, train with the first team, to ideally be in that matchday squad for that first game against Arsenal on the Super Sunday.
I wonder whether United are just trying to do a reset now. Because are they willing to start taking hits on players? I can compare it to maybe if you look at when Mikel Arteta took over at Arsenal. They were not in a good way. I think his first season they finished 8th. They didn't make the Champions League in his second season. but they made a decision as a football club that some of the players that were no longer going to be part of Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's future, however much they could have got for them, they just said, right, sometimes it's going to be a mutual termination of a contract.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're going to have to take much, much less than what we wanted for them and probably what their market value is, but just so that they can move on. Are Manchester United thinking like that?
Yeah.
Benjamin Sesko has reportedly agreed to join the project, with sources indicating only final paperwork stands between him and an official announcement. Should both transfers go through as expected, Manchester United will have completed 2 major additions in one swoop, sending a strong statement to the rest of the Premier League that the club is ready to return to the top under Amram's vision.